Hey everyone, welcome to This Explainer. Look, if you're a fresher stepping into the job market right now, you've probably figured out that having a stellar resume, yeah, that's really only half the battle. The real test, the absolute make or break moment, happens inside the interview room. So today, we're giving you the ultimate YouTube-style guide to mastering behavioral interviews. We're going to walk through your first steps, your next steps, and some really essential key tips to help you decode the hidden grading rubrics employers are secretly using. Let's get right into it.
Okay, picture this. You're sitting across from the hiring manager, and they hit you with, "Tell me about a time you failed." Boom. It's the exact kind of high-pressure question that makes most of us freeze in absolute panic, right? Your palms start sweating, your mind completely blanks, and you're sitting there wondering, do I quickly invent a fake story, or do I just admit that I accidentally deleted the entire production database during my summer internship? Well, you really can't escape these scenarios. Why? Because a staggering 85% of hiring managers ask teamwork and behavioral questions just like that one. It is literally the universal standard across almost every single industry today. You can't hide from them, which means you just have to master them. So, here's our roadmap for today. As our first steps, we'll decode the behavioral interview code and look at employer NACE expectations. For our next steps, we're going to master the STAR method and figure out how to ace those high-pressure questions. And finally, we'll wrap up with key tips on the red flags you absolutely need to avoid.
All right, Section 1, the behavioral interview code. As our very first step, we really have to understand the fundamental logic behind why interviewers ask these specific sweat-inducing questions in the first place. Once you get the why, it completely changes how you answer.
And honestly, the core premise here is actually pretty fascinating. Employers operate on one major belief. The absolute best predictor of your future behavior is exactly how you've behaved in the past. They aren't trying to trick you, I promise. They're just working off the proven assumption that, if you handled the conflict well last year, you're probably going to handle a conflict well next year. And the more recent that behavior is, the more likely you are to repeat it.
This represents a massive shift from old-school, traditional interviews to modern competency-based behavioral interviewing. See, they don't want to hear what you might do in some hypothetical scenario, because, let's be real, anyone can invent a perfect theoretical answer. Instead, they demand concrete proof of what you actually did. Basically, they want receipts.
Which brings us to Section 2, decoding employer NACE expectations. So, they're looking for past behavior now, but what exactly is that invisible checklist they're secretly grading you against?
Well, enter NACE. That's the National Association of Colleges and Employers. They've explicitly defined the exact career readiness traits that interviewers are checking off on their clipboards. This is the absolute gold standard for what makes a college-educated candidate actually ready to hit the ground running in the real workplace.
Think about it like this. When they ask you to tell a story about a project, they aren't actually interested in the project itself. Not really. They're probing to see if your actions demonstrate these specific NACE competencies. Did you show critical thinking when you were troubleshooting? Did you demonstrate equity and inclusion by engaging with diverse teammates? Your story is really just a vessel to showcase these exact skills.
And here's the crucial point. They rigorously score you on these traits. Take a look at this 3-point rating scale for resilience and adaptability. An inadequate response gets a 1. An adequate response, like showing you can simply recover from a setback, gets a 2. But to snag that top score, a 3, you have to show truly impressive behavior. You need to provide an excellent example where you say acted as a role model or a leader during a crisis.
All right, time for your next steps. Let's jump into Section 3, mastering the STAR method. Guys, this is literally the ultimate cheat code to make sure you hit that top score every single time.
If you take away only one thing from this explainer, please make it this framework. It's your foolproof formula for a perfectly structured answer. S stands for situation. Just briefly set the scene. T is task. What was your specific responsibility or the end goal? A is action. The concrete physical steps you took. And R is result. The positive measurable outcome of all your hard work.
Now pay super close attention here, because this is where, honestly, 90% of candidates completely miss the mark. You need to allocate a massive 55% of your answer time purely to the action phase. Please do not spend 3 minutes explaining the complicated, dramatic backstory of your college group project. Set the scene quickly, and then spend the bulk of your time detailing the specific, calculated steps you personally took to solve the problem.
Just look at the difference between a weak answer and a STAR answer. A weak answer kind of just rambles, right? It claims personality traits without any real proof, and it focuses way too much on what the team did. A STAR answer, on the other hand, is laser-focused. It uses the word I instead of we, relies on hard, clear metrics, and builds this logical narrative that absolutely proves your competence. Moving right along to Section 4, Acing High-Pressure Questions. Now that you've got the formula down, we really need to talk about the toughest boss battle in the interview room. Prompts like, tell me about a time everything went wrong with a tight deadline.
So why do they push so hard on these stress-inducing scenarios? Well, research from the Harvard Business Review shows that a staggering 65% of workplace failures actually happen during high-pressure situations. Managing stress isn't just some nice-to-have bonus trait. It is a critical predictor of your actual professional success.
When they turn up the heat, they're really checking your emotional regulation. Like, do you panic or do you stay calm? They're testing your decision quality. Do you make rash, impulsive choices when time is short? They're looking at your prioritization skills. And ultimately, whether you can be a steadying force, a real leader, when the chaotic reality of the workplace inevitably hits.
And finally, we arrive at our key tips in Section 5, Interview Red Flags to Avoid. Before you head into your next interview, we absolutely have to cover the automatic disqualifiers. Because listen, you can have a brilliant star story, but if you trigger one of these red flags, you're out.
The absolute biggest trap you can fall into, overusing the word we. The second you say, we did this or we did that, the interviewer is instantly wondering, wait, did you actually do the work or did you just sit back and watch your teammate do it? Always focus on your specific contribution. Oh, and completely avoid glib or superficial answers and never ever fail to provide a concrete, real-world example when they ask for one.
You now have the hidden rubric, the core logic, and the exact response formula to succeed. Take these tools, build your stories, and show them exactly why you are the perfect hire. But I want to leave you with this one thought today. If your entire career trajectory comes down to a single story from your past, what exactly is your star story going to be?